Alright, in this video we're going to create a wooden door. We're going to fabricate the wood texture we need, and then we'll start to cut it up and assemble the door and the frame. So what I'm going to do is I'm starting with a new layer right in my texture editor here, this reference file. You can work separately outside, independent, with an independent file if you choose, but I'm going to do it right in here for the sake of this expediency. So I've got a new layer. I'm going to get my swatch window, and I'm going to take two values of brown. So in this case, I'll use a very soft brown, and then I'll switch my swatches here, and I'll choose one that's darker. And now that I've got my two colors, I'm going to go to Filter, and I'm going to go to Render, and I'm going to choose Clouds. Now once I've done that, I'm going to go to Filter, and I'm going to go to Blur, and I'm going to choose Motion Blur. And I'm going to put a bit of vertical motion blur on this, maybe about 90. You'll see as you do this, it starts to make the pattern go in a more vertical fashion. So I'll go ahead with 90, a distance of about 20. I'll click OK. And then I'm going to go to Filter, and I'm going to go to Render once again, and I'm going to choose Fiber. And you'll see it does a pretty respectable job. Now over here you can make some changes to this if you choose. So I'll go ahead and perhaps play with the values. I'd like the values to be a little bit more even. Maybe you want the wood grain to be a little tighter. You can do that by adjusting here as well. And if you click on randomize, it generates with an algorithm some other variations on it. So I'm going to settle for that. That looks pretty good. And now what I would do next is I want this to look a little bit more organic. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to run the motion blur again. So I'll go to Blur, Motion Blur. That looks pretty good. I didn't want it to be too coarse, so that seems to do a pretty good job. And I think I'm going to bump it up to maybe 40 for the distance, a little softer. Now there's one other thing I may want to do, and I'll use this while I'm actually editing the piece as well. And I want this to have a little bit more character. So I'm going to put some twirls on it, and in the process, it'll make it look like it's got knots. So I'm going to get my marquee tool, and I want the elliptical, and I'll make a selection just randomly inside my file. I'm going to right click, I'm going to put a feather on it now, and I'm going to make the feather maybe 15, and you'll see why in a moment. Now if I run the twirl filter, so I'll go to Filter, Distort, and Twirl, just zoom in on this a bit, and you can see in the filter preview window that when you run the filter, it does not leave harsh edges around the perimeter of the filter, the twirl filter. So I'm going to go in here, I'll make this a little narrower, and I'll go to Filter again, and I'll go to Distort and Twirl, and maybe I'll back that off a bit. That might have been a bit extreme. I'll deselect, and maybe I'll put one down here. Now I'm just going to hit Command Option F rather than reset it. Now I think I want to go in and play with the values of this a bit, so I'm going to go to Layers, and I'm going to go to Levels. And you know, at this point this stuff is pretty subjective on the quality or the effect you're looking for. You can see my value range is pretty uneven here. So I'm going to hold the Option key, and I'll start with the light values, and I'll drag until I start to see a few pixels appear. And still holding the Option, I'll drag on the dark value on the left, do the same. So when I start to see some darker pixels in this context, lighter pixels, pardon me, I'll let go some yellows, some reds. All right, and then if I wanted to, I could go in and adjust the middle values as well. Now, I'm going to leave it like this because I don't know what colors I really want or what value of brown or hue of brown I want until I actually get to my destination. All right, so I've got my wood pattern. So now it's pretty much carpentry. And now I'm going to use this to cut up and place over my template. So I'm going to start by changing the opacity of this a bit, just so I can see what scale I really need. So I'll drop my opacity down, and I'm going to get a piece that is the equivalent of a board. Start working on the vertical piece, so something like this. Again, this is really subjective at this point. When I hit Command J, I get a copy of that selection. So I'll turn off that piece of wood until I need more. So it's like I tripped the Home Depot, really. So I'm going to put this into position now. And I'm going to scale it down to fit on that side. And because it's a piece of wood, the grain is pretty random. Let's bring this back to 100%. And I will stay on that same layer. I'll Command click on that piece, drag it over to the other side. And just like the template, I wanted to imply those 45-degree angles that you see in the frame as well as the door. So I'm going to hit Command J with this selected, and I can rotate that piece now 90 degrees. I'm going to put that into position. And now I'm going to layer mask it across the top to start with. And if you're feeling lucky and you don't think you need a mask, that's fine, but changes are always imminent, so it's a good idea to get into the habit of saving everything. So now I'm going to 45 this piece. I'm making a selection with my polygonal selection tool, and I'm going to layer mask it. Deselect, I'll go over to the other one. And I need to refer you at this point to the piece that is in the PDF with all the tutorial content, because at this point it gets a little bit more in depth. I want this to look older, so I'm going to go put an outer glow on it with a dark edge. And when I do that, the implication is that this wood perhaps might be dry, starting to separate a bit, but it also allows us to accentuate these little details that might not be evident from a distance. So I'm going to zoom back on this. At this point, I'll probably make a selection of that piece of wood. Kind of have what I want there, so I'll apply the layer mask. And I'm going to option drag a piece down to the bottom. And because that's 45 as well, I'll simply flip that horizontal, vertical. Okay, there we go. Return, save. Okay. And so on. So now I'll grab another piece here. Since I've got these, I will grab this. Once again, Command J to hold on to a new layer for it, and also to keep those layer styles. When you put these layer styles on, if you hit Command J, it maintains it on the new layer, which is kind of nice. So there's kind of a consistency there. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to split this panel vertically, and then have a panel here and there. So I'm going to just repurpose this. I'll hit this piece right in the center. I'll hit Command J, and this one I'll rotate 90 degrees. And I'll pull it down to here. Holding my Option key, I'll drag in, making it a little thinner so the wood isn't all the same width. And I'll put my center pivot at the bottom, and then I'll drag this piece up like so. Return, Command S to save. All right, so I'm going to work on this a little bit more, and then I will come back with a little bit more done, and we can go from there.